Good day and welcome to, I don't know, I guess like a new type of video. Basically I'm doing a Pokemon Nuzlocke, and for those who don't know, Pokemon Nuzlocke is where you have a couple rules that dictate how you play a normal Pokemon game. So essentially you have to catch the first Pokemon you encounter in any route, and if Pokemon faints you cannot use them. You're supposed to release them, but I'm going to be putting them in the box so that we can see who we lose along the way. I'm also adding in a couple more rules that are optional. The first one being naming all your characters. Generally most people do this, but you're supposed to give every Pokemon a nickname. I'm also making this an only one type challenge, so all of our Pokemon have to have the water type, which means we can't even use Groudon or Groudon. I don't know how to pronounce it. But yeah. That's basically it. Also, we'll be using the set battle style. Well, no, we won't. No, we're not. I didn't select, or did I? I can't remember. But basically, we're gonna give it a go. Now, Pokemon Ruby was actually a gift to me for my birthday, so I remember this game very fondly. It was really awesome, and I had a ton of fun playing it. So I am experienced with Pokemon games. It's not something that's unusual. But there's a couple of challenges that we'll be facing pretty nicely with this run. Firstly being getting a second Pokemon, because we can't really catch any water Pokemon outside of one or two very rare occasions until we get a fishing rod. So we have to be very strategic about this. But yeah, so we begin our journey into Pokemon Ruby. Now for those who don't know, you have to select your gender, of course. I go boy because I always kind of thought, firstly, I always thought the white hair was his actual hat. I mean, his hair, by the way, but it turns out it's a hat, which is pretty crazy. I named him Bazza because I've been watching a lot of Barry lately. For those who haven't seen that show, it's really good and really weird. So after creating Bazza, we begin our journey into the world of Pokemon Ruby. And the first crucial thing that we do is select or set our clock. Now, setting your clock is actually super important in the original game, because essentially setting your clock and setting your time on the clock was important for the growth of berries, which is why it was such an important factor. And it would use the internal mechanism on the Game Boy to determine the amount of time that's passed between playtimes, which would allow you to essentially manipulate how fast your berries grow. After that, our mom tries to play matchmaker and hook us up with May, and to my dismay, basically, at the time, I had a huge crush on May as a character. Just thought her style was really cute, and yeah, it was like a huge thing for me. Also, I think this is the first Pokemon game where you have two rivals. After trying to seduce May, after hanging out with May, she instructs us to go see the professor, and we end up essentially having to choose our first starter Pokemon to save him from this vicious Poochyena. Now, obviously, sticking to our water typing, we're going to stick with Mudkip. In future games, if, for example, we want to choose a typing that is the secondary typing of a Pokemon, so for example, Ground, you can obviously choose the starter that can at least obtain that typing. Because otherwise you're just limited to, grass, fire, and water, which is pretty cuck. Of course, according to the rules, we have to name Mudkip, and it is Kippy. Also, the best kind of nature for Pokemon does affect their stats, and Adamant or Jolly is the best nature for Mudkip. So of course we didn't get that, we got Rash. Pretty cool. After this time, because we only have one Pokemon, we did go on a little bit of a farming route, essentially trying our best to just kind of farm things up, gain some early levels. It's very easy to gain levels and very important to get Water Gun, a very strong early game spike for good old Mudkip. So we started the farming process and immediately missed our very first attack, which kind of just spelt out essentially one of the failings that I would have with Kippy as a Pokemon. Just always missing attacks. We then had super fortunate luck and encountered a Wingull, and then I remembered I didn't have Pokeballs, which kind of made me incredibly sad, because this is one of the 3 opportunities we have to get, well, I think it's one of 2 opportunities we have to get a water Pokemon before we actually get a fishing rod. So with that opportunity completely wasted, I then almost committed sacrificing of Kippy to a Poochyena. Luckily, Kippy did not miss this attack, and after this I felt necessary to heal up before we took on May. Now May is pretty straightforward. Her Trico does not know any particular moves of substance at this point, only really Pound, so the level difference will keep us quite well covered. May essentially, for those who don't know, is always going to choose the opposing type to you, so it always causes a huge problem for your same type runs, because essentially your one rival will counter every single one of your Pokemon to a certain extent, which is great. So we make short work of Trico with pretty big ease, to be honest, and things go by pretty smoothly at this point. I think for us, things will go by pretty well. Mudkip generally is quite a strong starter in this generation, has some good type advantages, and the early gyms aren't such a big issue for us. After this time, we carry on heading over to Petalburg City, obviously to meet up with our dad, who apparently, for whatever reason, does not live near us and our mother, at least based on what I understand. So he's in Petalburg City. At this point, we obviously had to take out quite a few trainers along the way, which was fine. It was giving us a nice early EXP boost, but I actually forgot how many trainers there are in between these damn cities. I don't know if it was like this in the original Pokemon games, I can't really remember, but there are stages here where you are literally fighting like 4 or 5 trainers in one pathway between 2 cities, which is pretty cool. It's nice. I always enjoy the battling a lot. Once we get to Petalburg, we meet up with our dad, and he's immediately tasking us with helping out another child instead of spending time with us. So we go and help Wally catch a Pokemon. Now Wally, I think, is the whole triple rival or 3 trio type of thing is a new mechanic, if I remember correctly. In Pokemon Ruby, it was the first generation to do this, and it's now become kind of like a staple with Pokemon, that you generally now have the whole 3 rival system. So you have like your original rival and kind of like a companion rival, or a friend and then a rival. I think this trend has continued ever since these games, and it's a good change. This always blew my mind as a kid, by the way, the reflection in the water. I had only really played Game Boy games, and seeing my reflection in the water was kind of like mind-blowing. We then traveled into the forest, not Viridian Forest, unfortunately. This is the worst named forest ever. I don't even remember its name. And we almost died to Shroomish. Shroomish is a absolutely terrible wild Pokemon for us to pick. All Shroomish above level 5 have Absorb, and that's a huge problem for us as basically, trainers of a Mudkip. While we are traveling through the forest, we come along our good friend from Devoncorp, and basically Devoncorp, Petalburg Woods, there we go. Devoncorp is like if Amazon was a benevolent company instead of being a corporate shill and horrendous, dictatorship. So Devoncorp is like this benevolent, super, ultra, mega corporation that creates all these fancy gizmos and devices. I think in Pokemon Emerald they actually give you a phone as well. The Devoncorp device is also a phone, I believe. I can't remember if that's in Ruby. I think that's just in Emerald. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. Obviously this is also the beginning of us fighting Team Magma Grunts, who always have a Poochyena, and we managed to take it out pretty easily. Once leaving Petalburg Woods, we go and pick up some berries and some other crucial items along the way. But mainly at this point we're just picking up trainers as we make our way to Rustboro City. We miss out on our first double duel because we only have 1 Pokemon. Double duels are going to be pretty crucial because one of the Nuzlocke rules is that you cannot use EXP share. So being able to do double duels and being able to challenge double duelists is going to be a very crucial way to accelerate some of our weaker Pokemon, whilst protecting them under the shadow of our stronger Pokemon. Once in Rustboro City, we immediately head over to this man who tells us that naming his Pokemon is absolutely pivotal towards his happiness, and that's why he named his Pikachu Pikachu, which, was crippling. Then we go across and find the TM cut. One thing I do appreciate about the older Pokemon is that sometimes you could just miss stuff. I remember not having cut the HM and just having no idea where to get it. Before we take on the gym, we do go and pick up Quick Claw. You can get it from the Pokemon school there, and Quick Claw is a great item, especially early game. allows you to essentially guarantee yourself the first attack, which in most situations, especially if you have a decently high leveled singular Pokemon strat, is going to enable you to get that first blow, which you probably do need. Now this gym is not an issue. This gym was super duper simple. We have complete and utter type advantage the whole way through. As we take on this first fight, we also finally get our evolution for our Mudkip, and we become Marsh Stomp, and this gives us a huge power boost, as well as allowing us to learn Mudshot, which is a pretty good move. We replace Growl with Mudshot because we don't believe in debuffing the opposition, but also because we need more attacks, basically because right now we only have a normal, a ground, and a water, and Mudsnap's not the best ground-based ability for damage. So we pick up Mudshot, and then head up and take on Roxanne. Now Roxanne, like any other Pokemon game, as the rock leader in the first gym, is basically a punching bag for everyone that comes through. I think the only Pokemon that doesn't have type advantage is Fire Pokemon, and if you learn fighting moves, then you end up having an advantage anyway. Obviously, with our powerful no longer Mudkip, we're basically able to clean things up pretty easy. Marsh Stomp, aka Kippy, absolutely cleaned everything up. Kippy did pretty well. Honestly speaking, some good attacks as well as the critical hits. I was getting pretty good. The only thing was the occasional absolute, crippling miss that would occur. But that's a trend that's been established since basically we got Kippy. But easily cleaning up this dungeon, super duper simple, well, dungeon, gym, and yeah, pretty much a super nice cleanup. So the first gym and the first badge, all without too many issues. The big thing so far is obviously understanding that essentially we are going to need to get a second Pokemon, and picking up that fishing rod is going to be crucial. So we need to be very careful about how we use that and which Pokemon we pick up with that. We can do in-game trades, but we can only trade for water-type Pokemon, so we need to keep an eye on that as well. But basically, guys, that's a pretty good run, I would say. Right now, we're looking pretty good, and yeah, that's basically going to be it from me. Let me know if you guys are looking forward, and if you want to add any rules into future runs or this one. See you next time. Bye.